To make the table, I'm going to be using a pre-made panel that I bought from my local big box store. I start off by measuring out and cutting 30mm strips, as that's going to be the width for the legs and also the frame underneath the table the legs will fold up into. And I also made sure to measure from the other side of the wood the width of the table to make sure that I don't cut it too thin. Now, using my track saw, it was very simple to measure 30mm and make a straight cut, and I did this 3 times. That gave me 3 strips. I could then measure out to the final width of the table and cut down the panel to that, and then cut it to length using the track saw as well. Now I could use my square and pencil and mark out 10mm in from each corner, and this would tell me where the stretches underneath needed to be screwed down. I now moved over to my circular saw, and using my speed square I cut down the stretches I needed to length, measuring off the marks on the bottom of the table to make sure that I cut everything the length that it needed to be. Now I marked on all of the stretches where I wanted to pre-drill all of the holes for screws, and then proceeded to drill all of the holes. And I first started out pre-drilling and then using a countersink bit to drill down a countersunk hole so that the screws would actually be down below the surface. I actually ended up breaking my countersink bit, so I ended up just pre-drilling and then using a different countersink bit, but this didn't allow me to drill a hole deep enough to lose the screws, so they ended up just being flush. Now, to make the legs, I was going to make some sort of ladder looking things, and I just measured out and pre-drilled for screws for all of these. I could then use a clamp to hold them together, and then pre-drill with the same drill to get the holes to pre-drill into the end of the stretches for each leg, so that when I screw it all together, it's not all going to split all of the wood. Once I'm finished pre-drilling, I could pull them back apart, add some glue and screw them together, also countersinking these screws as well. Now I needed to make a radius on the top of each leg so that it could fold up underneath the table, and it turns out there is a use for the Imperial system, because this size socket was perfect for the radius that I needed. Now unfortunately, I thought I pressed record, but I didn't, and turns out that I didn't record drilling the holes for the dowels, but all I did was clamp the legs in place, making sure to leave a 10mm gap between the leg and the end of the table, and then using the right size bit for the size of the dowel that I had, I drilled right through the leg and the side of the table, and then I could insert the piece of dowel, add a little bit of glue, pull the dowel back in. This made sure to only get glue on the inside of the leg hole and not the inside of the table hole. And I also added a screw in here that you won't see once the legs are folded out. The screw here was just to make sure that the dowel was locked in place. And once I had done that, I could then use my flush cut saw and cut the dowel off. Just like that, we're all done. Unfold the legs and you have a little lap table. Quick and easy. Took me about 45 minutes from start to finish, and it's perfect.